Against the terrorists who killed thousands of Americans last Tuesday, but against all governments supporting terrorist regimes.
By abandoning every value except the will to power, they follow in the path of fascism, Nazism, and totalitarianism. And they will follow that path all the way to where it ends, in history's unmarked grave of discarded lies.
The president called for international support, demanding Afghanistan's ruling Taliban leaders turn over all members of the terrorist group al-Qaeda, whose leader Osama bin Laden is the suspected mastermind in last week's attacks. Mr. Bush insists the U.S. will not negotiate, but Americans, he says, must not discriminate against peaceful Muslims around the world.
The enemy of America is not our many Muslim friends. It is not our many Arab friends. Our enemy is a radical network of terrorists and every government that supports them.
And with a promise to protect Americans from future attacks, the president created a new cabinet-level position, naming Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge head of the Office of Homeland Defense. Mr. Bush called on American resolve, holding up his own reminder of the national tragedy, a police shield from the mother of an officer killed at the World Trade Center.
It is my reminder of lives that ended in a task that does not end.
He continued, "We have suffered great loss. We have found our mission and our moment.
We will not tire, we will not falter, and we will not fail."
Members of Massachusetts' congressional delegation are pledging their support to the president tonight.
WBZ's Ron Sanders continues our team coverage live in Washington. Ron?
Joe, several members of the Massachusetts delegation, as you might expect, gave the president high marks on his speech and its content and its delivery. In fact, none of the members of Congress I heard reacting to the speech uttered a critical word about the historic address.
My hope is that it means a lot to Americans. I think he hit every point he had to hit. I think he was very clear, very concise, and right on point. I hope that the rest of the world takes him seriously. I think he was very clear as to who the enemies were and who the enemies are not. The enemies are not the Arab world or the Muslim world. The enemies are a handful of extremists, and I think the commitment is very clear. And my hope is that those governments that have thus far supported terrorists take his message very clearly. At this point in time, I'll tell you it's without question that the entire Congress supports the president on this issue.
I think the president hit all the right notes. I think it's going to receive the full-throated support of all Americans. And I think now we have to move on to the stage where the Congress and then the American people provide the support that the president is going to need in order to implement his plan.
I thought it was a strong speech. I thought he did a good job, and I think it was a lot of what the American people needed to hear.
Congressman John Tierney did express concern that the president set the bar high for the Taliban, but he hopes that they can be persuaded to meet American demands. Congressman Tierney also said he thought the president's speech tonight was his best ever. Live in Washington, Ron Sanders, WBZ-4 News. Joe?
All right, thank you, Ron. There is more heartbreaking news from New York City tonight. Mayor Rudolph Giuliani now says more than 6,300 people are missing in the rubble. Giuliani also concedes it's virtually certain no more survivors will be found. WBZ's Beth Germano is live in Midtown Manhattan tonight, where New Yorkers were riveted by the president's speech. Beth?
Joe, many here in New York were reassured by the president's words, his vow to rebuild their city, to seek out the enemy, his rallying cry. We visited a fire station here in New York, where in between emergency calls, the men paused as long as they could to hear the president's speech. And given what they've been through for the past week and a half, they felt he was speaking directly to them. For the men of New York's